Welcome back, beautiful souls, to the Soul Collective podcast. My heart feels like it's going to explode. I am so excited to be connecting with a mentor, a friend, a sister, somebody who is just an incredible guide and way sharer here, helping in so many different ways. And I'm so excited to share her divine wisdom, divine magic with the Soul Collective community. So it is a pleasure and an honor to introduce Becca Bee. Welcome.
Oh, with so much honor. Thank you so much for opening up this sacred space and just inviting this conversation that is about to come forward. I just have so much love and just so much gratitude for what we get to share together.
Yeah, there is, gosh, so many really infinite directions I feel we can go. We're going to be perhaps exploring the light language of the stars. And I feel probably a multitude of other different directions. One thing I'll share about you, Becca, is that every conversation I have with you just opens up just a realm of incredible wisdom, um, magic, possibilities, healing, growth. So I'm just so excited to see where this conversation guides us.
It is so amazing. It feels like there's so many amazing, brilliant, shining stars upon the planet that are just eager, open, aware, just awakening. Like the blossoming lotus really is happening upon the earth where so many are just reaching out. And I feel the excitement of so many different new chambers of wisdom that have been really either hidden or locked away is coming into our consciousness. And I find that, one of the things that really lights us up is when we start to get to understand ourself a little bit more, starting to kind of understand how our own system is operating, what is our own things that are kind of affecting us within our life so that we can witness it. And again, many times it's kind of like you're saying, it's like when we aren't aware of something, when you start to hear about it, then it's all of a sudden like this whole chamber of possibility opens up. And I feel like when we do get to work with our star energy, our star seed energy, our blueprint of our astrological wheel, the human design, I'd actually love to dive into the nervous system a little bit with you, that we start to actually have those internal awarenesses and ahas that happen that let us start to go, oh my gosh, that's why I've been doing this. That's why this has been happening. And in all, what I really find is that all of this kind of energy to kind of get towards something, that the more we get to sit and to be with it and start to become more present with ourselves, that it is this level of tranquility, of peace, of being settled within the self. And also one of my favorite aspects, which is just starting to actually love and enjoy life.
I love that so much. And I have to say, you weave so many different healing modalities to really help one to know themselves in such interesting and beautiful ways. And I'd love to maybe start more at the beginning, right? Wherever you feel guided to share. And this will be fun for me to hear more about your own journey that has brought you to be doing such interesting work and healing in the world.
And this is fun because this I think will lead in a little bit to the nervous system because this is kind of where I've been diving in a little bit deeper lately. And part of my journey personally has been, you know, having similar situations to many, many souls upon the planet. It was definitely feelings of not being mirrored at home, that lack of connectivity coming from a childhood environment that was actually quite stressful and quite emotionally debilitating many times. And what I found out through the years is like it takes us a long time to actually realize there's trauma kind of locked inside the body, because generally as a child, when we live it and it is our day-to-day life, we normalize it. We're like, oh well, that's just how it is, oh it's no big deal. And yet we don't understand why maybe we get reactive or frightful, or why do we have that incredible stage fright when we really have a deep passion inside of ourselves to share something. So there was definitely a higher self involvement for me within this lifetime, because I easily could have gotten pulled into the shadow realm within this lifetime. There was a lot that easily could have pulled me into not choosing to expand and explore. But at a pretty young age, probably around the age of 17 or 18, I had very significant things happening in my life where I was having awarenesses that I was I didn't realize it at the time, but I was setting intentions. I was sitting and kind of being and setting an intention of what I wanted to create, and it was happening. And it was happening like almost to the detail of exactly how I imagined it. And at that time, I was kind of in an environment that was wanting to swallow me in. I was at a time where I was even borderline not wanting to be here on earth, just a lot of depression, a lot of just overwhelm, and a lot of just pent up frustration towards life and towards the world, because of just the survival mode that I had been in most of my childhood. And after that, it was like I started to just kind of imagine being in this free space. And what I started to actually intend was a door opened for me to move to Hawaii. And I honestly, I actually never thought about Hawaii. I didn't know much about it. And when the door opened, there was just something within my soul that just said, go for it, just do it. And it was very much a leap of faith. I bought a one-way ticket, packed one suitcase, and I just went. And within that, that was really truly the beginning of my journey around 18 years old. I just left everything I'd ever known and went on this journey that I really felt from the moment that I landed. I don't don't get me wrong, I still drug all of my shadow with me. But within there, my heart began to heal. My heart began to feel the Lemurian energy of the land. I didn't understand that at the time. Hawaii is where I started to really connect with deep spiritual beings that were communicating with me, beings that were working with me in my dream time. They were taking me on these very lucid journeys in the land. And within that, I started to get very curious to this unseen realm, because I came from a very strict religious background where it was either like it was God and angels or everything else was the devil, you know. And so it was always taboo to look at anything, to think about anything. Like, you wanted to walk the straight and narrow or else. And so there was this whole breaking free within myself of being like, oh my gosh, I'm stepping into this unknown territory, but really feeling from the heart, really beginning to just actually sense the compassion, the wisdom that was coming forward. And as that, there was definitely, I will say this was all gradual, my understanding of it, but I was starting to have flashes of experiences in past life connections to the Hawaiian Islands. Why I felt as though all of a sudden I finally was home. I'd never been there before, but all of a sudden it felt as though I was home. And to this day, even though I don't live there now, when I think of home, that is where I think of. So it was really beautiful. And I will say this to anyone, physical exercise, Earth Mother, Gaia Sophia, is our greatest way to actually clear a lot of the pent up stuff, the shadow and the frustration that we've ever been holding, and karma. And very quickly into my time in the Hawaiian Islands, I took up surfing, like pretty much right away. And for over 20 years, that beloved, beautiful ocean water just beat me up. And it's like the waves day after day, because I was quite religious about it. If I had a church, it would have been my ocean, that been in the ocean. And I just let every day just feeling, and many times in such a spiritualized way, that they were just washing me clean constantly. Every wave that was coming over was giving me the opportunity to be brand new. And that's truly where my journey started. I had a very deep calling to learn um, energy types of healing. So I took things like intuitive medicine. I started studying intuitive medicine. I started in studying body work, learning to be, I got licensed as a massage therapist, Reiki. And from there, it just went on and on. But each journey, it was like, okay, well, this is amazing, but it's not all of it. And I find that's been my entire life journey. It's that kind of working with doing readings, because again, I was awakening quite intuitively to really tap into these dream realms and intuition and feeling the guides talking. And so it got fairly easy to do many readings and things for people. But then I was like, it doesn't feel right to just tell people things. And so as that kind of progressed, I actually got really drawn into the realm of hypnotherapy. I had some books jump out at me, Brian Weiss, the Life Between Life books with Newton. And some of these books just kind of jumped out, and it was just like that big doorway opened for me. And it was like almost immediately after going and taking an extensive course with some amazing teachers through hypnotherapy, that I immediately found the work of Dolores Cannon. And I was blessed enough to have been joined into that before she left this earth realm. So I really got to feel her vibration. And it was just kind of like all of a sudden this aha, all this understanding of these spiritual realms and these unseen realms started to just make this awakening inside that says, yes, it makes so much sense that a lot of the stuff that we are feeling in this very now moment don't even belong to us, and they didn't even originate in this moment. And so there are tools that we have available to us to actually begin to find the way to get to those origin points. And then it was a bit after that, as far as the way the guides lead, that they led me into really starting to dive into human design first. I got into human design quite a bit ago. And it was just a neat thing to start to go like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's right in the blueprint. My birthday has it. There was always an intrigue with astrology and kind of dabbling and playing with it. But I didn't get full into studying it until human design came in. And then I just really kind of dove in from there, and then took off even further into the astrology. And then of course the starseed came after that. Was so blessed to come across Julia, that her course came at such a beautiful time, because I'd been really studying the fixed stars and their influences, and kind of playing on my own of how do I integrate this into the chart, how this is supposed to match in there. And then bless her shining heart coming and putting all that work together for that galactic astrology course. I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you, you did this just for us, so thank you. So that's kind of a nutshell, I guess.
Oh my gosh. It's incredible to hear about your journey and just your natural following of your own intuitive guidance, taking that leap of faith to move to Hawaii and then just feeling so deeply connected to the earth. And then all of these modalities that you just kind of naturally gravitated to, like naturally found your own resonance with, and then how you've been able to like share them really for like the past 25 years in your own unique way. And so I'm so curious, like when you layer them together, like I feel like it just brings forth this massive healing potential that's available. And you talked about your own background and upbringing of like very deep in religious programming and beginning to like remove those layers of programming and this realization that oftentimes, the trauma or the limiting beliefs like aren't even ours, don't even belong to us. I'd love if you could maybe share and unpack that a little bit more as it relates to perhaps like beginning to peel back the layers.
Absolutely. One of the things I guess I would say with that, is that I think a lot of us have that innate knowing when you're listening to something. Maybe it is at church, maybe it is, a parent is saying it, and there's a feeling that we have inside. And I distinctly remember this as a child. And I remember even the school I went to, I think it was my seventh grade or eighth grade year or something. And in the religion that I was, it was just customary because I even went to the school systems for that religious system growing up. So I was very, very much enmeshed in it. And I remember in that particular year, it was the year when it was just almost part of the curriculum. You're supposed to get baptized. And I just remember being at that point already a little bit of a rebel. It was the only way I knew how to kind of resist it. But just this feeling inside of absolute, I can't do that. And I don't know why. It's like I had no cognitive understanding of why I was resisting it. But it felt like every single part of me said, don't do it. And I've always felt that even within it, when they would do prayers and when they would maybe call out to certain, there's all kinds of names, whether people are calling to Jehovah or to this or to that, and I would find myself never saying the name. Like, and I could never understand that. I could never understand why I had such a resistance to saying a name in a prayer or calling out to these beings, because there was, again, this part of me that said, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel comfortable and I don't want to do it. And so I want to kind of say that because I think innately all of us have those feelings. But many times there's an override that comes that says, well, everybody else is doing it, or why do I have a problem with it? Or, oh, well, I want to be a good person, because there were definitely times where I got put in enough fear by the pressure around me to make me believe that I was going to go to some pretty bad places, and I was really little. Those were like really little memories, like maybe um probably I think like 7 years old, and literally having nightmares, waking up at night being afraid that I wasn't going to make it, right? And so there was already this embedded fear within there. And many times we will just, in order to not feel that fear, in order to just move away from it, we'll find ourselves complying with things that don't really feel very good, but we'll try to excuse it and make it okay. And I would say that for all of us, we have places within us that feel that. And this is actually going to tie us in a little bit to our nervous system a little bit. I know I keep mentioning it. I'm fascinated by it, honestly. Because in so many ways, there's aspects of us that are deep subconscious, from our galactic starseed memories, from our past life memories, and from our childhood memories, are really impacting us on a psychological and a subconscious level. But there's also responses within our nervous system that we learned at a very young age, that many times our way to actually survive something is just to shut down and not fight it. And so it creates a pattern in life. When conflict comes into your reality, you'll find yourself either just shutting down or going numb because it feels just too futile to resist it, or we will do the fight or flight. And many times it's the flight of like, run away. And so, when we're younger, it's really hard for us many times to catch this or understand it. Our consciousness generally isn't at a place where we can understand it. So as we get older, as we start to even be drawn to conversations like this invites us now to start to go and look at, where am I not feeling entirely comfortable with something, but I'm going along with it? Where am I starting to feel a little bit of agitation, or that it drains me, or that it makes me like I feel a resistance to it in some way, shape, or form, something in my reality? And that is truly the way that we begin to catch these blocked places within our energy system, within honestly our soul field. Our nervous system very much plugs in to our plasma body of our soul. And so the memories that are held within our plasma field of our soul and our auric level are directly affecting our nervous system. And that is so intertwined with the DNA and the light language. So the light photonic energy that is moving through our DNA and the sequences of how it's moving through those DNA strands, whatever our blockages are, or whatever our shadow that we're still carrying with us, is actually going to affect which sequences within our DNA that it's reading and rewriting out again. And so this is where the work comes in so amazing, is because now you imagine we're going into an aspect of going like, wait a minute, I'm tired of feeling tired. I'm tired of feeling as though, I'm just compromising my life. I'm just going through the motions. We all have our own list and our own subjectivity to what it is that we are wanting to change within our reality. But it's that desire for change that starts to open the door where we start to question and ask, where did this come from? What is this within there? And so as we get to look at this, these kind of feelings can now lead us to signatures within our astrological chart, signatures within our human design, our starseed patterning, which might show us the vibrations of a lot of different histories that honestly Earth is just kind of replicating in a whole other way. And then as we get to see this, that the beautiful aspect of it, this is what hypnosis and what QHHT and practices like this give us, or honestly meditation and mindfulness. It's not this arduous thing in order to shift and change. It's not as difficult as we think. Honestly, the scariest part of change is actually having the courage to sit with what is uncomfortable. And once you're able to do that, now you just witness it. Witness it. You're witnessing it. I say here because it's almost witnessing it on a cognitive level of like, oh, these ahas start firing off. But really, we're witnessing it from the heart. And it's no different than an aspect of kind of understanding what a child is looking for. Really, all a child needs is to feel as though they matter and that someone actually notices them and cares about them. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I feel okay. And really, a lot of our wounded places, our shadow places, are truly our fragmented soul aspects, our fragmented inner child, our wounded inner child. This is going to be soul retrieval work. This is going to be the shadow work. But really, in an aspect, we could just see it's all aspects of self that have been kind of lost and scattered throughout time, that we get to now witness so that we can breathe them back home into our heart. And there's really nothing left to do other than just to acknowledge it with non-judgment. And it's as though just the cosmic forces take over, and it just unravels all of that anxiousness within the nervous system. And that's where I just have that absolute joy of just it's amazing to just get to just feel peace, feel just joy, just be like not on this high alert or high stress level through life, and actually love the life we're living.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and it's so subtle sometimes. Like as you're sharing, I'm thinking about my own nervous system and the journey it's been to know and be in touch with my nervous system, because I feel to your sharing, it's just noticing how patterns are woven over time and just subtly developed. Maybe it's like a loud voice or yelling, when you're like a little kid, and just how the response of that can affect us on a cellular level. And just that subtle, example of maybe like something that was a little bit frightening, or something that is more substantial, um, can have a ripple effect. And but what I feel like what you're sharing is to have that compassionate heart and to have the courage to really look at it, to witness it, to call it back home is this sense of reclamation.
Yeah, it's such a gentle love from the heart. And that this really gets to start to attune us to our soul family, our guidance team, to one thing that's been coming forward is the message from the guardians is how much of a whisper it is many times when they connect with us, when our higher self is speaking to us, when our guidance team is talking with us, it's generally a very gentle whisper. When Gaia speaks to us, when nature speaks to us, it's like you go for a walk out in nature. You will never hear her talking to you if you got your headphones on, if you're busy, if you're yapping, if you're too off in your head somewhere else. And so it's about really truly coming to a sense of mindfulness within. And I think this is one of the neat things that connecting to starseed information has been so helpful with. And I actually want to touch on a little bit of of kind of the shadow aspect. Sometimes the starseed information can go, as well as the beneficial. Let's just
I love
let's
that.
call it out, right? Because here's the thing: if we are and I'll use myself as an example just because it's like, a lot of times when we've had to be the ones taking care of ourselves, or, and a lot of people have this programming. I don't care if you've had parents with you the whole time, if you've ever had, there's sometimes still this belief system of, well, no one else sees me, so I have to be the one that looks out for myself. So this isn't necessarily even coming from something that looks like a trauma signature. It's just something we might just come up with within ourselves. And from that very vibration of like, well, I'm here to take care of it. I have to be the one that takes care of myself because no one else sees me, no one else loves me, whatever that inner child is saying, right? And so within that, we actually create another aspect of ourself, or this could be referred to within parts therapy or internal family systems as that protector part that comes through. And so usually that part is quite rebellious, has a bit of a control issue. Well, if I know what's coming next, then I'll be safe, right? A lot of times this will be like, wanting to always kind of have control of the situation, or to have a sense of I don't care. It's like, well, then I don't care. Well, within that, you can imagine it's quite a forceful kind of energy that's protecting. And a lot of times when we start to tap into past life energy or galactic starseed energy, all of a sudden we'll be like, oh, well, everything I'm going through is because of this, this, and this. And we will automatically excuse it all and actually start to identify more with the aspect of who we are, maybe on that other planet, as that other being in that other lifetime. And this is like probably one of the greatest pitfalls, if there is one, of this work, because then all it is a projection into something else, a different identity, to still try to escape whatever we're dealing with here. And to just be like, oh, well, this is the work that I am doing, and oh, well, this is my purpose and my soul's purpose on life, so that just doesn't bother me anymore. I'm not going to let any of my past bother me anymore. Oh, well, I don't think about my childhood because it doesn't matter to me. And that is literally one of the greatest pitfalls that we could have, because your nervous system never got the memo. Your nervous system is still having that wiring within there that doesn't have the ability to quite release it. And so what there is kind of this magical energy where we get to realize, well, yes, that was one aspect that my soul experienced, but it's not who I am currently in this lifetime and in this incarnational experience. And we want to validate every place that this sacred vessel, this body, did feel scared, frightened, insecure, so that we can just now, again, oh, it's just witnessing it, witness with the heart, and just witness and say, yeah, it makes sense. Now I get that. That makes sense. Now I get that. That makes sense why I reacted that way. Little embarrassing that I maybe threw this or did that or, threw a temper tantrum. But now we can start to understand why we reacted to it. So now what we're doing is we're unclicking the place where judgment, shame, embarrassment, all the places where we actually hide, that is one of the main things that we do. I would venture to say there's not really anybody on the surface earth that's living fully transparent. There's aspects of us that we hide, that we feel vulnerable, that we feel not super comfortable to put out there in certain ways. Now let me clarify this, in a very neutral, compassionate heart way, non-judgment, right? And truly, to be that for the world is a little challenging. We first want to flip the mirror around and be that for ourselves. Can we be so transparent, so loving, so able to witness our beautiful and our ugly that we have been emotionally through our reactions of our nervous system in this lifetime? And then with non-judgment, we get to almost just hug ourselves and just say, it's great, and it's no judgment. Now what do you want to be? Now how do you want to express yourself? And that alone, against that dissipation that starts to happen within there, that I think is super, super powerful.
Yeah, and I feel like what you're hitting on is just this multidimensional, layered perspective of maybe perhaps understanding patterns that are woven over space and time. And there's almost an illumination that takes place through perhaps, a starseed galactic reading of understanding, oh, like this is deeper, and this is perhaps why it's, been with me or feels a little bit more sticky, and from that, perhaps allowing it to be unraveled, unwoven, to be alchemized through that awareness, of the broader perspective. So I guess, one question for you, like as we're, exploring this, if, listeners are kind of like maybe like, gosh, I'm not sure quite like what is meant by a star seed reading and how that might like illuminate perhaps shadow areas or, patterns in my life, or perhaps even like my soul purpose, like can you share a little bit about this journey and some of the things that are unearthed or illuminated?
Yeah, it's such an amazing thing, because first of all, there's still a lot of humanity that goes like, oh, well, what does my birthday matter? What does my birth chart or my astrological chart even matter? And so then it's even another stretch to start to look at, well, what does it matter? What maybe these asteroids or maybe these fixed stars or constellations have as far as an effect within my life. And this really takes us to a very kind of broad, where we really open up our consciousness to really come back into that awareness, if you will, that we are light and vibration, that excuse me, that we truly are a light being, and that even if we were to take a microscope and get one powerful enough that could go into our cell and in and in and in and in and in within our body, that we would realize that all we are is just blinking lights, blinking on and off at such a rapid pace that we actually look like we are a solid being. And it's even that alone is sometimes going like, oh, well, maybe science can show that, but it's still really hard to believe. And what happens is, what we get to realize is that, just here's one way I like to actually describe it that I think a lot of people can get. is that when we think about the moon, there's kind of a thought, well, like, well, yeah, great, there's a moon. But yet we actually can see the visible physical ways in which the moon is constantly changing the earth. It moves the tides dramatically. So again, I was a surfer for very many years, and it was very significant: high tide, low tide, what kind of waves you were going to get. And it was all relevant and following the moon cycle. Now we can understand that something that is the moon, how it actually has the ability to move the energy of the entire ocean. And we're water. We're also water. So therefore, there's a way for us to start to go like, well, then maybe there is a possibility that all of the planetary bodies within our solar system, through their orbit and their gravitational field, they also have an influence on us. And this is why they're referred to as the archetypes, because each one actually has an influence on our archetype of our psyche and how we are either thinking or processing the world around us, how we are receiving love, how we feel or don't feel as though we have the ability to use our power, or so on and so forth. And so this is truly advanced wisdom that eventually got hidden into the mystery schools because of all the distortions of needing to hide away this wisdom. And so it kind of went under the carpet for a long time, that it was just some mystical thing or something. But truly, in times past, even within the Essenes and say even the Atlantean times, one would have really followed their birth chart, because it would have signified that you, as a plasma soul being, your star map would signify your sacred blueprint or your geometry, your light fractal of what gateways you emerged into this lifetime and into this body with. And so we can kind of like a droplet of water, wherever water goes, it holds the memories of everywhere it's been. And we're like that droplet of water. Our soul is like that droplet of water, that wherever, whatever star systems, whatever constellations, if you've lived Lyran lifetimes, if you've lived lifetimes in Andromeda, lifetimes in Orion, lifetimes in Alpha Centauri, that as your soul has moved through these lifetimes, that you actually hold those memories within your soul field, and your blueprint holds that signature, because it's the magic of the mathematical equations of the universe. And that gets way out of my field. That one I have so much fun with, but it's so beyond.
Well, you explain that so beautifully. And I feel like maybe it's just become more common to hear like Palladian or Syrian or Lyran or like some of these, starseed nations. And like for example, what I'd love to ask you is, say that you do have, ties to Lyran, for example, and your, galactic starseed report, like what might that illuminate and help one to further reveal about their journey through the cosmos?
Yeah. Oh, and what a beautiful star seed that you picked, because there are a lot of Lyran star seeds incarnated that have maybe not entirely Lyran, but have a significant amount of that. And that holds a lot of the energy of the responsibility of what has happened throughout history and timeline. So there is deep sense many times within a Lyran starseed of not understanding why, but you feel kind of responsible for everything in your reality, and like you need to fix it. And there's kind of a sense of a deep sense of purpose or mission, like there's something you need to be doing. And a lot of times within even past life regression or different sessions like that, there will be even the sense of like, I let my people down, or I let everyone down, or it's all my fault. And within that, within the Lyran genetics, there's understandings that that's one of the key places within humanity's history where there was a great war. And part of this war was destruction of very sacred Stargate templates within that area that actually spanned multiple dimensions. So when this happened, it started to significantly deteriorate the ability for light to be held within this system. And if you could just reference the idea that light is consciousness, light is your power, it's your consciousness, it is who you are, basically. And so what happened is there was a distinct moment in that time where the Andromedan mother galaxy and many of the different races from there, working with the councils of Lyre, had to make a very tough decision. And it was this decision of like, do we just collapse all of it so that it doesn't infect or pollute other places? Or, there was so much compassion. This is where we are. So this is one key thing I think a lot of Lyran starseeds hold, is we always want to see the good in someone. They'll be doing things and you'll be like, oh my gosh, but it's like for some reason your heart wants to see who they are on the inside, and you'll attune to that even though all of your logic tells you, oh my gosh, they should probably, have to be more responsible for this, or, they should be accountable for that. But it's like Lyrans are just notorious for second chances, third chances, 12 chances, this energy of seeing someone for the potential of who they can be rather than for who they are actually representing themselves as in the now. Because there is, again, this deep sense of responsibility of not wanting to abandon another or feeling guilty or responsible in some way for a lot of the ways in which nature and creation was abused, and therefore this perpetual kind of distortion just kind of exploded and got out of hand. It was incredibly traumatizing. That is one of the initial signatures within of refugee, and the feeling of losing one's home, because watching an entire planet be destroyed, feeling cut off from the Andromedan mother galaxy. We used to be very connected and have open communication, full vibrational communication. And in order to protect the higher system, it's like these caps or seals got put into place. And so that's also one of the initial wounds of feeling as though, well, now I'm all on my own. And now I have to take care of me, because that's one of the places, not the only star place, but one of the places where there's that feeling of being cut off from the mother, or being cut off from a nurturing connection within one's life, and feeling kind of as though one is now on one's own, homeless in that kind of sense. And so there's a great sense within Lyrans to want to make things right. There can almost be an overemphasis on that, an over sense of a mission or a purpose within there, even quite a frustration towards technology, a desire to maybe understand it, but at the same time a sense of hesitation or trepidation around it. And a lot of the Lyran starseeds, I think, have been highly watching how technology and AI is evolving on the earth, because there's genetic memories inside of how it actually facilitates destruction within planetary systems. So there is going to be that alertness towards the balance between how we use technology, but is it still in service to honoring natural law? So that might be a little bit of a different perspective on Lyra, but Lyra holds a lot of deep emotional energy, where one is just truly a lot to go back into and love oneself, forgive oneself, set oneself free, realize that there's no one Lyran that's responsible for all of it. That's the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, gosh, thank you for that share. It's just, again, such a depth and breadth of wisdom. And it's so activating to hear you share. And what it brings up in me, and hopefully, I can articulate this, is just, the limited sense that we're sort of taught traditionally on this earth plane, of history. And, it's like perhaps when we've, connected with Atlantis, or you've shared about your own personal experience with connecting with Lumeria, it's like this deep cellular remembrance. And I feel like with what you're sharing, and with our ability to connect with our own soul's journey through the cosmos, which oftentimes is perhaps much bigger than we could even possibly imagine, that we get in touch with our own multidimensional being, with all of these gifts and codes that we hold within.
Mhm. I think if I was to say the one most beautiful aspect of the starseed readings, um, is that what the guides always say is that once we hear it, sometimes it's not really beautiful stories. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes so much sense. I went through all this trauma, or these horrible wars, or this or that. But what they say is that when we receive information in our life, and so this is actually going to expand beyond starseed readings, but when knowledge and information comes to you, say from a starseed reading, where you get to actually hear about some of your lifetimes in that star system, or what your connection is to it, or what the emotional vibration was that you were feeling within that, they're saying that when that wisdom comes forward, it's because it's complete in your life, and you need to be able to see it so that you can let it go and set it free. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it, is it starts to create this, it's almost like you don't understand. And I hear this from a lot of people. They're like, I don't entirely understand all of it, but all I feel is all this energy releasing in my body, as though it just makes sense, even though, there might not be an understanding of even that star race, or that history, or what was going on there. It doesn't matter. That's that witnessing with love, that it's just you feel it unravel, and all of a sudden it's just like, okay, so who do I be now? That's really always the question. Now, who do I be?
That deeply resonates. And I want to ask you something just out of my sheer curiosity. You and I both share a deep love for sound and sound healing. And I'm curious what you can share about some of these star races and their use of, different sound technology.
Oh, yes, I love that. So there's a couple star nations that would come to mind. But even when we think of Lyra, when we imagine that within Lyra, a lot of the migration that happened from the beings there actually moved into the Taurus constellation, into the Pleiades, the Hyades. So I'm gonna kind of work with some energies that we'll kind of understand a little bit. But when you kind of even look a little bit more cosmic up, there's the awareness of the cosmic dragons. And these would be like the rainbow dragons, or the luminaries, like crystalline beings of light. But these beings, when they birth through, a lot of their birthed beings are going to be very closely connected to, say, the Hydra constellation. So the Hydras. And I love actually getting to talk about the Hydras, because a lot of times people will see Hydra and they'll be like, oh my gosh, isn't that place dark? Isn't that, like, what are these? What are serpents? There's still a lot of energy on the planet where people just have been so programmed through different teachings to actually feel like serpents represent something evil or bad. And so within this, I want to first talk about the cosmic creatrix beings, which would be like these serpentine beings. We think of them here on Earth like Nagas, or the water serpents, or even the water dragons, and these beings. But many times they had um, the ability to change their form. So they could, many times look like a female, or like a person walking along the earth, whereas then they could morph again more into what we would see as the serpentine type of tail, or the dragon type of tail. as they moved. And these beings are incredible. They're throughout all different planetary systems, honestly, because they're guardians of these sound templates that hold the structures of the earth in place. So they don't really necessarily always speak like we do, but they are more working with the original sound tones that create the structure of the material reality. And this is, I know this is a lot of what you also share, because this is about how when sound begins to bounce onto, when sound touches onto the void or the cosmic waters, right? Now, all of a sudden, it creates cymatics, it creates patterns, it creates geometry. So this is that sacred geometry and that light language that we talk about. The light language and the angelic languages create reality. They manifest reality. And so these Hydra beings, they are masters of the realms of the light and in the dark, because they are working within the inner earth, all of the earth templates. They feel the most subtle vibrations. And then within that, their way that they would utilize it, because it's like body to body with Mother Earth. They can feel if something's out of harmony. They can feel if something's a little off. And then they utilize their sound tone to stabilize the frequency of the planet in order to create maintained vibration and all of these things within the planet. And so most of us don't think about this because we're so stuck in our own world and what's going on. But just for a moment, let's think about the aquatic world. Let's go back into the ocean. And in the ocean, you know, yes, there are mer people. Yes, there are inner civilizations in the water. But just for across the board, whales. Whales are an angelic race line that actually come from the Andromedan Mother Galaxy. And they have actually seeded themselves into many different planetary systems. And what do? They're constantly using their sound to heal, stabilize, to maintain consciousness on the earth. Without them, we would not be where we are today. Bottom line. That is something I believe to my depth and my core, that if we didn't have these beings that were doing this work, consciously living their life as a song and a sound for creation, we wouldn't, this cycle of where we're at, I think, would be much more challenging. And so now we get to kind of understand that there are beings in creation, that is their entire purpose through their form, is to work with planetary bodies, cosmic ley lines, just energy centers. You know, they aren't going to be beings, many of them, that you see with your actual eyes, but they're actually holding sound tones and frequencies in place to maintain the integrity and structure of the universal template. And now, as you step into more physical form, you get beautiful beings like the beings from the Hyades. And these incredible beings, this is really kind of in unison. If you even think about the Hathors, I'll touch on both of these kind of simultaneously. That they have such a connection through their spiritualized awareness. We call this many times just spiritual mechanics. It's basically understanding the physics of the universe and the physics of the many dimensions, the physics of the different elements that exist within the different dimensions. They're different. We live in a carbon-based reality right now here in this first harmonic universe. But as we move more and more into light body, the actual chemistry of that dimension changes. And so how we interact with it changes a little bit. And so there are beings that hold the wisdom of what all of those physics are. And the primary thing is that we are realizing, this is, Nikola Tesla, bless his soul, was always trying to say this. It's like they understand that we are vibration, we are frequency, we are sound. And so there are basically technologies that are created that actually emanate particular sound tones, and these sound tones will actually mold crystal, will mold structures, will carry water through. And just for this, I'm going to invite, I think I sent this video to you, but I'm going to invite, if anybody is really interested in understanding sound at a really incredible level, so much love to Michael Tellinger for how he's actually discovering how this off-planetary technology has been here and utilized on Earth. Oh, so incredible. Our buildings, the way in which different things were created on this earth, the things that most of us can't understand, because we're sitting there going like, how did they build that building? How did they move that rock? Sound. And most of this had to do with the ability of, there's this idea of holding the cones. You'll see them many times holding two different structures in each hand. But what it is understanding the chemistry and the alchemy of that dimensional state, and that the person, through their intentions, their psychic gifts and capabilities, is actually the one moving the sound frequencies and actually moving the structures. So this sounds like just pure magic, right?
Well, I love that you're bringing this forward because it just really invites us to connect with the whales, with, other beings that are using the voice and sound frequencies in such beautiful ways. And we have that within us, of course. And, to be able to combine sound with a clear intention, I really truly believe that, healing miracles unfold as well as, so much other magic. So,
I will say, and it is, because it is, aside from it being technology, aside from it being even some of the ways in which craft are flown, or things are worked with, right? Even the beings in the Hyades, they've actually created such powerful weaponry there. And they are these very beautiful divine beings. So it was stuff created to actually protect creation within that Taurus system against a lot of invading forces. And so they became known as the protector, the warrior priestesses, honestly, for being able to utilize, because all this equipment is basically directed through levels of psychic interface or connection. But I just want to say, just on that healing energy, and I'd love for you to add to this, because in Beta Centauri, I've had the gift of a few different beautiful people I've done chart readings for, where their higher self took me into seeing how they worked with things within Beta Centauri. And within there's entire chambers that are under the water, under the oceans, if you will, where they have these massive healing centers in there, where they will work in groups, and they will direct through sound directly at the soul field of an individual to begin to actually assist them in repairing the soul field from some of the traumatic lifetimes that they've been through. If their soul got really fractured in a lifetime and there's just a lot of trauma, that when one can actually be within the space, they actually circle around, and their entire healing modality primarily is sound.
it's so beautiful. I feel that I've, connected with something similar to what you're sharing in meditation. And I feel that, to be able to connect with sound and bring forth, the elements, to really utilize the elements, especially water, which holds, so much cellular memory and is such a amazing conduit of healing potential. So I just love that. I can see that. And I just feel that the way that we're evolving is that there'll be healing temples of some fashion, whether it's underwater or whether it's, somewhere that we are transported within our own consciousness. And just to be able to really, connect with sound frequencies in such a beautiful way. So I love all that you are sharing. And I would love, we've been kind of out there in the quantum realms, and Becca, I'd love to just, bring it back down to really, this physical realm, to our physical temples. You shared recently about the five subtle bodies and goddess Sekhmet. And I love that sharing because it was really about the intention with which we connect to our own, physical temple, and the importance of just even the subtle decisions that we make, and the reverence, the deep reverence that we have for the vessels from which we get to experience this earth plane. And I love, as we move through so much, alchemy and transformation of, during these times, I'd love if you could share maybe some thoughts on this.
Oh, this is so beautiful. And my heart gets really excited. I actually feel like where this conversation could lead would probably be like maybe another conversation, because there's just so much to unpack within it. There is a level of us understanding that first, as we start to come into this realization within ourselves of like, who am I? What is this purpose of this life that I am leaving, also living, that we start to get to actually question from a higher mind. What is it that truly matters? What is it that I want to do? How do I want to live? And this is where that shadow work comes in, where we get to really face it and see what are we just doing because that's our programming, that's what we've been told we have to do, and where can we step into our layers of courage within ourselves so that we can actually start to maybe make uncomfortable decisions of clearing certain things out in our life that aren't resonating for us. Because if it's not resonating for us, how's that for a sound analogy, right? If it's not resonating for us, it's literally going to create dis-ease within our life. And so even our very situations within our life, if we're not sensing a sense of joy and happiness and love within it, it is actually creating a disharmony within the vibrations of our cells and our cellular tissue. And so the five subtle bodies is actually quite beautiful, because it teaches us that our body is actually in a lot of ways quite a physical form, right? That if no consciousness ever chooses to awake within it, it'll pretty much just operate on a subconscious level. It'll just pretty much automatically operate and move through life. And that it is truly an immaculate gift. Yet at the same time, if we do not actually come in and nurture it, become one with it, become mindful with it, actually embed in it, this is a huge thing that I think a lot of people are familiar with, is that most starseeds, light workers, indigos, crystalline beings, rainbow beings, whatever, however you want to refer to it, are like helium balloons. They're barely tethered to their body and they're trying to float out of here. And the way out is actually in. I think when we really get into it, we start to realize we actually need to come present back into our body. And so therefore we have to start to connect to it, feel what's uncomfortable, feel what needs to shift and change within there. And that within the first base subtle bodies within the Sekhmet teachings, and this is Robert Masters has a beautiful book. It's basically Sekhmet in the five subtle bodies, the psycho-spiritual, forgive me, I just don't have the title all in my head, but Robert Masters put this book together. It's really, really beautiful in the sense that it maps out the three lower bodies, if you will, are going to be our physical body and then our mental plane, where we primarily exist. Most of us exist in our head, not in our physical body. And then the next body up is actually our subconscious body, where really all the programming's existing. And that part of our first journey is actually to start to harmonize our physical body through the awareness of our subconscious so that we can actually take control of the mental plane and realize what's running it. And that after that, now we start to become more present within ourselves as we start to now connect up into the next two bodies, which is the magical body and the spiritual body. And that the magical body is truly the realm where we start to actually realize we are magical, that our thoughts do matter, that we actually are affecting things through our aura, through our vibration, through our intentions, and have a way of affecting the material reality around us. And it's very clearly stated within there. What I love about it is that it's really just about understanding the physics of this reality, that thoughts and intentions matter, and that this is the very same field. This magical plane is the very same field that can either be used for light or for dark. And so there are a lot of people that understand this, but actually use it for dark magic, right? Because they're just using it for self-power. So what we want to understand is all of these are energy fields, and that just because you start to attune to something a little bit more subtle in your energy doesn't automatically make it good. It's truly how your soul uses it. How's your soul directing it? And what are you choosing to be a gift to for humanity? This is a key thing, because we get to a place where it's like, how do I protect me? Especially for people that have been in survival mode. It might be survival, 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 and to actually click into a new awareness of now being service to others. How can now I actually start to see the collective? And this isn't no different from anybody who maybe already is about others, 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 but usually others, others, others is coming from a place, from something inside that is still needing to come into balance. So we want to see what polarity are we at. So we clean up the lower realms generally through the subconscious. This is really what it shows within there, that through the subconscious is one of the main planes and bodies that we begin to shift and change the lower realms so that they can be in service to the higher realms. And that as we start to imagine our abilities within this magical body, if you will, that we then have the ability to actually strengthen it, have confidence in it, that it isn't just, oops, oh, wow, that's so cool, it happened, but we actually start to acknowledge ourselves in being the one that's actually manifesting and being within this energy. And that beyond that is what is called the spiritual realm. And that is the realm that they call the netters, or the higher dimensional beings, or where we could imagine that our guides, our guardians are resisting or existing, whatever that slip is. We'll have to think about that. But as we get to understand this, that it's a very, very subtle realm up within the spiritual body, and it is almost intangible. This is that place where we were talking earlier, how when our guides are communicating to us, it's a whisper. It's so subtle, it's so gentle. So we have to actually start to calm all the energies in the lower body so that we can actually begin to hear that and to surrender to it. In a way, we surrender our ego to our higher self so that we can begin to realize we don't have the answers. What would it be like if we lived our life kind of in this devotion and honor to what is creation intending, involving, and moving towards? And as we begin to tap into this, this is truly the realm of soul. And this is the most subtle realm that takes an incredible amount of devotion within our life to actually pay attention to this realm and to develop it. And we want to become so consciously aware of it that we actually strengthen it, evolve it, and grow it, so that the purpose of all of this, and this is where I would love to go in another conversation with you at some time on, is that at this level, we start to realize our eternal nature, that we are more than our body, we are more than this lifetime. So where does our soul go after this? That in truth, a lot of our journey is to actually get us to the place that realizes that our entire life is about preparing for the great birth, if you will, of that transition of our soul at the time of our death out of the body. And that, have we done the work? Have we done the development of our spiritual body and our magical body enough that they are so strong that when we pop out of the body, that we don't just whoo, lose it as if it's just like we lost a dream. And this is why so many of the mystery school teachings and different practices and even sacred plant medicines and all of these are journeys about how do you move your consciousness in and out of the body so that you actually have the awareness that you're not the body, but that you actually are honoring the body as part of the vehicle of this lifetime. And as you realize your ability to move in and out in consciousness, what starts to actually unplug from you is fear. Because at the primary level, fear is the greatest thing that binds us to our body. And then when we unplug from fear, we become aware of our eternal nature, and therefore we actually start living this life even fuller.
Incredible. And I absolutely want to have you back on to have a whole, additional exploration. But I mean, this is just incredible what you're sharing. I often go back to, words that you shared, which are about, the pillars of the temple and to really master those in order to go within. And I feel like that's really related to what you're sharing right now. And gosh, I started this conversation and just sharing that you are such an incredible, mentor, sister, friend, and your sharings and teachings and wisdom has, so profoundly impacted my life. And I just want to, thank you and honor you. And I'd love if you could share with listeners, where, if one feels so called, where they can go to connect with you.
So my website is probably the best way to kind of find out about everything, and it's withbecca.com. So if you go there, there's a link for events, and you can see links to the Soul Circle if anybody was inspired to maybe be a part of these kinds of conversations. I just completed the third part, but I do have available a series that I've been running, which is called Journey Through Your Blueprint, which takes you in kind of an initiation and a sacred journey through your own astrological and human design gene key starseed blueprint in a sacred way where you get to develop a deeper understanding of your personal blueprint. So it's not so much a class on astrology or different things. You'll learn a lot about it, but primarily it's so you can meditate on that and be with that. So if someone was really interested in maybe understanding that a little bit more, that might be something fun. But the website, I would say, and then if anybody felt like it, I do have a YouTube channel that has probably more videos than anybody will want to watch.
Yes, I highly, highly recommend your YouTube channel and the workshops, which are incredible. And also, if one feels so guided, to do a one-on-one session with you, because it truly is a magnificent, remarkable, transformative journey. So, Becca, oh my gosh, this has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so honored and grateful for the opportunity to just, connect with you and share in this way. And
Oh, likewise, sweetheart. I love you so much.
I love
Oh,
you.
my heart is just giving you the biggest hug and big hug to whomever may listen to this. I send so much love to everyone. And I just, the work that you are doing, the light that you are sharing, the love that you emanate from you, it's always such an honor to connect with you. So thank you for sharing this time with me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would love if you could leave listeners with just a final word of wisdom.
One of the things that the guides just shared with me is that all of your power lies right within you. not within the power that you resist outside of you. And that all that you are is right within the light that you are. And just coming into yourself with love and with just a curiosity of what would it be like if I absolutely loved every single moment of my life? What would that be like? And just let that in.
I love that so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone listening. I hope you benefited from this sharing. If you did, please share this conversation with a friend. And as always, I'm sending so much love and gratitude. Look forward to connecting with you next time.